Welcome to Into the Future, year 2030. Thank you, we are excited that you are here, and thank you for your attention. 2024, what a crazy year it has been. From the now infamous Cat Williams interview that set the year off on fire, setting the tone for a year of secrets revealed and truths coming to light, to the quiet on the set documentary that further peeked behind the curtains, the 2024 Summer Olympics that took place in Paris, to the overwhelmingly decisive victory of Donald Trump during the presidential election, the shocking public fallout and legal controversy surrounding Sean P. Diddy Combs, the recent rap battle between Kendrick Lamar and Drake, and the aftermath of it, the continued funding of ongoing wars in Russia, Ukraine, and in Syria, conflicts and genocides happening in Palestine and in many countries in Africa. All of the division that has taken place in America between different political viewpoints and the gender wars being waged across social media sites and podcasts. And now drones currently in the sky above us, and no one seems to know why. I think I speak for everyone when I say we are so over 2024 and are looking forward to 2025, albeit it's better than this year. Well, 2025 is just around the corner. How do you think the year will be? Will it be a great transformative year, or just more of the same? Or maybe it will get worse, with America and the rest of the world in the current shape that it is in. What is your outlook on the future? What if I told you that the solution to most of the problems of the world is the health and mindset of America, and the remedy to the ills America face is something very few know? The answer may be surprising to some and a long-held secret to others. The answer to a lot of the issues we face today have been sitting right under our noses this entire time. The solution is a people lost through time, asleep and unaware of its purpose, confused and hurt by its circumstance. These people is Black Americans. What is the current state of Black America? Well, it is kind of in a weird place. You see, Black America is one of the only races of people that are viewed and handled as a collective or a group, whether good or bad. So some of us are doing well, we are educated in high-salary jobs, we are business owners, we are scholars, scientists, musicians, we are artists, athletes, actors, and even superstars. As we make progress on an individual level, the collective community as a whole still has facts and statistics about it that exist. For an example, African Americans make up 14.4% of the U.S. population, around 48 million people. The median age is 32 years old, with 30% of us being under the age of 20. The average median income for Black America is $56,000, while 18% of us live below the poverty line. Black people are 3 times as likely to be arrested, and over 460,000 of us are currently locked up in America's jails and prisons. African Americans have a 30% higher chance of having high blood pressure and 30% more likely to die from heart disease, all while having the second lowest life expectancy of any group of people in the United States, just behind American and Alaskan natives. Nearly half of all Black children are growing up in a single-parent household, and Black children face harsher punishment in the American school system. I know you are probably thinking, how is Black America the solution to all the problems that face humans? Well, before I can answer that question and any other question you may have, join me as I take you on this journey, a journey of discovery, of truth, and of triumph. Once we reach our destination, we will have traveled through different time periods, moments, and ideas past, present, and future. By the end of the presentation, we hope to have clearly and methodically brought you into the year 2030. How will we get there, you ask? Well, I have my trusted time machine here that we can use. I will show you a future only a few years from today, but at least 100 years in advance compared to where we are now. So get ready and hop on board and enjoy the ride as we take you to year 2030. Now hold up a moment, let's not get too ahead of ourselves.
Hold up, wait a minute.
Before we can take you to where we are going, I need to take you to where we have been. So let us rewind the clock back and set this machine to go into the past. You ready? Let's go! The history of man on this planet is a long and complex story that dates back millions of years. The past is not the focus of this documentary, the future is. So we will only touch on the overarching themes and necessary plot points in our past. This way, we all can get caught up on what has happened so we truly understand why we are where we are today. Before the fall of man, man had reached a level of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that helped him create a world that reflected balance within himself, his people, his environment, and his universe. It was a long process that took place over the course of hundreds of thousands of years on every continent of the planet. The focus today is on the people that remained in Africa and developed throughout the continent. Through intercontinental migration, some of these people would settle around the Great Horn of Africa, near Ethiopia, Uganda, Sudan, and Somalia, and would continue to develop and gain intelligence there. At about around 6000 BC, these people would create cultures and would come to be known as the Nakada and Badari people. These same people, known today as pre-dynastic Egypt, would develop into the magnificent and technological advanced culture of ancient Egypt at about 4000 BC. With one of the earliest known written languages and its understanding of cosmic law, mathematics, agriculture, geometry, and spirituality. Soon enough, though, competition coming from the inside and threats from outside forces began to push the ancient rulers and originators out of the empire. They were pushed south and would build great empires like ancient Nubia and Kush, while others began to move west and establish empires like the ancient Nok and ancient Sao empires. Facing even more pressure and domination from even more outside forces, they were pushed further west and would go on and establish the empires ancient If and ancient Ghana. A changing of the guard was taking place where the old rule was being quickly replaced by a newer rule. The African soil began to get carved up with imaginative borders being placed on its land. This complete infiltration and takeover would culminate in a period that gave birth to the Arab slave trade of African people, which would later lead to another system and practice that was the European-African slave trade. Combined, African people would be enslaved for over 1400 years. We all should know the horrors and the savagery that took place during this period. No need to go into detail. The captive people were bought and sold throughout the Arab, Europe, South America, Brazil, the Caribbean, and would make their way to the shores of North America in 1619. Through countless rebellions and revolts, the people who were captive always fought for freedom. Some of the early slave revolts were the Zenge Rebellion, the Stono Rebellion, the Haitian Revolution, the Gaspar Yanga Rebellion, and the 1733 St. John Insurrection. Slavery in America ended when the 13th Amendment was added to the Constitution in 1865. Only a symbolic victory. The moment the ink was dry, Black Americans would go right into another horrific system of Jim Crow, segregation and domestic terrorism from their white counterparts and from local and federal government. Despite all the chaos and destruction in their daily lives, by the turn of the century, Black America would develop several prosperous independent towns and cities like Black Wall Street, the Jackson Ward, Parrish Street, and the Haiti community, just to name a few. The spirit of Black America could not be defeated no matter the circumstances. Around this same time, during the turn of the 20th century, Black activists began to rise in America with notable figures like W.E.B. Du Bois, Ida B. Wells, and Marcus Garvey, to name a few, who not only spoke to racial equality, but nationalism and Pan-Africanism. Around the 1920s, Black Americans began to get involved in the entertainment industry and produced stars like Josephine Baker, Mamie Smith, and many other great artists, poets, musicians, and writers who came out of the Harlem Renaissance era. The 1930s saw the Great Depression in America, which hit African Americans even harder with sky-high unemployment, high discrimination, increased racial violence, and the Great Migration, which saw a mass exodus from the rural South to the northern states. The 1940s was not much better, as an increase in lynchings was prevalent and media propaganda was full throttle, placing African Americans in a permanent inferior class. As time went on and more injustices occurred, more rebellion, organizing, and protesting would take place, and this would lead to the creation of organizations like National Advancement of Colored People, Congress of Racial Equality, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, the National Urban League, and the Nation of Islam. These organizations, plus many more, would be known collectively as the Civil Rights Movement. The violence and injustice towards Black America The constant protesting, organizing, and boycotting would lead to the Civil Rights Bill of 1964. The mid to late 60s saw the transition from the Civil Rights Movement to the Black Power movement. It was marked by a growing sense of racial pride, political activism, and a demand for self-determination, often accompanied by more militant tactics, like in the rise of organizations like the Black Panther Party. This era also saw a significant focus on cultural expression through music, art, and literature that celebrated Black identity. Such a powerful movement indeed, it wouldn't last long as the covert U.S. government program, COINTELPRO, would send undercover agents to plant seeds of distrust amongst organization members, as well as start beefs, arrest, and assassinate people. These actions would almost completely wipe out the idea and movement of Black Power. The 1970s was a decade of progress and great accomplishments by Black Americans. This decade ushered in a new era, a post-civil rights era, with many accomplishments in business, politics, in sports, in the arts, and in entertainment. In every possible sector, Black America was starting to have access, and with that access showed not only its adequacy and competency, but its greatness in all areas of society. Black American music like soul, funk, and disco flourished and helped in the creation and development of the beloved hip-hop music. The 1970s also saw the rise of blaxploitation films in Hollywood, which perpetuated negative stereotypes like drug dealing, pimping, and criminality. The 1980s was a pivotal year in the collective Black American development. On one hand, more progress was made in the political realm, with more and more African Americans assuming positions of power and authority. Hip-hop culture continued to expand and reach the far corners of the world, and Black cinema and Black television shows began to develop. The 1980s also seen the devastation that was the crack cocaine epidemic, which led to mass incarceration, high poverty rates, violence, the rise of street gangs, and many other social issues. This trend continued in the 1990s, with violence in inner cities continuing to be prevalent, the war on drugs, and the three-strike policy that was created out of it. There was the riot in Los Angeles after the acquittal of the 4 police officers after the Rodney King beating in 1992. During this decade, half of Black America lived in poverty. The 1990s also saw a lot of progress in Black America, and the first of many feats like Mae Jemison becoming the first Black woman to travel to space in 1992, Joycelyn Elders being the first Black American and first woman U.S. Surgeon General, and Rita Dove being the first Black American Poet Laureate, not to mention all the Black music, movies, clothing, and television shows that came out in the 90s. The 90s is widely regarded as the golden era of Black culture. This was the decade hip-hop music flourished in its intelligence and consciousness, with rappers reaching a high level in substance and ability, which directly coincided with the recent resurgence in Black consciousness and information. This was also the decade that gangster rap and fashion rap took root in hip-hop culture. The early 2000s saw the continued rise and influence of Black artists on fashion and pop culture. Also during the 2000s was the rise of the digital age, that on one hand made the world smaller and was able to connect people. On the other hand, it made people more isolated and lonely. The grip and hold that social media and the internet has on the so-called first world has yet to be fully researched and understood. With technology rapidly advancing and the usage of cell phones becoming widespread, one thing post-2000s showed us is the injustice that still continue in America's relationship with its Black citizens, with police brutality being captured and broadcast for the world to see. These injustices would spawn a new age in political activism and social movements that would challenge America in the 21st century. Even though some would argue this recent explosion and trivialization of political activism, for an example, the woke culture has watered down the true mission of Black struggle, freedom, and power. The epidemic of COVID-19 was the most recent illustration of the lack of stabilization and collective preparedness in Black America, as Black Americans were contracting and dying from the illness at an alarming rate. Since then, the Black American community is in complete disarray. Gentrification has pushed out and further isolated Black people into smaller and tighter spaces. Our communities are riddled with gun violence. New forms of drugs and alcohol have corrupted our minds. Street and hoe culture has taken over hip-hop and the youth. We are easily hypnotized and distracted by celebrity gossip and online challenges. And the majority of us lack real depth or any real power. Fast forward to today, 2024, and to sum it up, Black America is long overdue for a cultural and spiritual revolution in evolution. Now, don't get me wrong, we have come a long way, haven't we? Through the ups and the downs, the good and bad, our spirit and resilience is still intact. Nothing was able to break us completely, and through it all, we still loved, cared, and fought for better. To be honest, no one knows what's next for Black America but us. Only we can create the reality in which we hope to have. There is, however, a way in fast-tracking the progress of the collective and elevating our well-being and status on this planet. What we do in the next 5 years will determine where our story will go. So join me and join each other as we work together to fulfill the promise and prophecy that was destined for us. Thank you.
We 50 Strong introduce to you our calendar 2025. Carefully crafted illustrations and detailed artwork. Each month representing a different concept and theme. This calendar is something the whole family will surely love and enjoy. Get yours today at we50strong.com.